I never suspected Isaac, my fiance's best friend, of harboring any ill will toward me. When I first met him, he shook my hand and flashed what I perceived as a genuine smile. He was charming in an effortless way, tall, easygoing, always ready with a quick joke. My fiancé, Marcus, respected him deeply, credited him with guiding him through tough times. I wanted to trust that friendship. At first, everything seemed harmless, but soon, behind closed doors, Isaac's tone shifted. Small jabs at my style, jokes about my cooking, questions about my intelligence, each left a sting. I should have realized sooner. For a time, I brushed off those small comments. I told myself that Isaac was joking, that I was too sensitive, or that I needed to learn to laugh at myself. My fiancé was busy finishing his graduate program, and I didn't want to cast any shadows on his friendship. But those jabs grew sharper when we were alone. Isaac would tell me I was only with Marcus for financial security. He'd say my jokes fell flat in public. He even insisted my provincial upbringing made me unworthy of marrying into Marcus's family. It wore me down, piece by piece. I confided in my best friend Genevieve, who listened quietly before admitting she'd overheard Isaac mocking me at a party. He joked to a group of acquaintances that I was a gold digger with the personality of stale bread. Her words stung, but they also validated my growing suspicions. Isaac wasn't just teasing me, he was telling others horrible things behind my back. My heartbreak turned into anger when Genevieve described how everyone had laughed. I felt humiliated and alone, uncertain how to handle someone so entrenched in my fiancé's life. I wanted to keep the peace, but his cruelty festered. Months passed and I tried different tactics. I tried kindness, baking him cookies or asking about his day, hoping a gentle approach might soften his hostility. He'd politely thank me in Marcus's presence, but roll his eyes when Marcus walked away. I tried ignoring him, limiting my responses to curt nods. That only emboldened him. Then I made small attempts to stand up for myself, but each time, he'd twist my words to make me appear irrational or oversensitive. The strain began infecting my relationship with Marcus. I could sense him growing tired of the tension whenever Isaac was around. Finally, one night, after Isaac had delivered another passive-aggressive comment about my intelligence, I pulled Marcus aside. I explained that I felt harassed, that Isaac wasn't merely joking. Marcus looked conflicted. He admitted Isaac could be blunt, but insisted he didn't believe Isaac meant harm. His hesitation to confront his best friend hurt me, but I persisted, detailing how I felt belittled, how it had been happening for months. Marcus seemed unsettled but promised he'd speak to Isaac in private. I felt a flicker of relief, imagining Isaac might back off if his behavior was finally addressed head-on. That night. The next morning, Marcus told me he'd confronted Isaac, who apparently denied everything. Isaac claimed I had misinterpreted his light-hearted humor. He also said I was trying to sabotage his and Marcus's friendship because I was jealous of their closeness. Hearing that twisted version of reality made my anger flare. Marcus pressed him further, but Isaac insisted I was too sensitive, cautioning Marcus to be wary of how I might control him in the future. Marcus seemed torn. He believed me, but Isaac's manipulative words had planted doubt. It was a day of heartbreak and a night of restless sleep. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere worsened. Isaac's remarks became less covert, yet he was careful never to show his true colors in front of Marcus's parents or other important people. He consistently undermined me, belittling my job, claiming I was incompetent at simple tasks. Once, when I arranged a small get-together, he told everyone I used store-bought food and lied about cooking it myself. His accusations baffled me, but the damage was done. The guests laughed awkwardly, and I felt humiliated again. Each incident seemed small, yet together they formed a nightmarish web I struggled to escape. I felt trapped. Even though I'd pleaded with Marcus for support, he was caught in a haze of loyalty. He acknowledged Isaac's behavior was odd, but he also felt indebted to him. They had history, school years spent supporting each other's dreams, family vacations, late-night phone calls. Marcus loved me, but Isaac was a brother to him. That emotional bond made Marcus hesitate to believe how sinister Isaac's behavior actually was. Sometimes, I caught Marcus glancing at me with concern, as if he wanted to help but wasn't sure how. Meanwhile, Isaac's attacks escalated and I felt cornered, powerless to protect myself fully, completely. One evening, I found Isaac in my apartment building's lobby, waiting for me. Marcus wasn't home. Isaac tried to appear casual, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets, but there was a tension about him that made my stomach churn. He stated that he knew I was stirring up drama between him and Marcus, and he warned me to stop. He accused me of manipulating Marcus with my fragile act. I was shocked that he'd confront me alone, but I refused to yield. I told him to leave. He smirked, stepped closer, and said if I dared continue, I'd regret it. I trembled with rage and fear after he left. That night, I lay awake recalling how Isaac once boasted he'd do anything to protect Marcus from bad influences. Now, I realized he saw me as the ultimate threat. I decided it was time to gather evidence of his manipulation. If I could present something concrete to Marcus, he'd have no choice but to see the truth. Over the next few weeks, I started discreetly recording Isaac's verbal assaults whenever we were alone. I saved screenshots of hateful text messages he sent me. I began building my case piece by piece. Unexpectedly, Isaac attempted a new tactic. He began telling people I was the one harassing him. He'd mention how I'd corner him at gatherings, accusing him of nonsense. He painted himself as a victim, claiming I was trying to turn Marcus against him out of jealousy. The rumors spread quickly through our social circles. People I barely knew started glancing at me with suspicion, as though I were a conniving intruder. Meanwhile, Isaac's hostility remained constant in private. He'd deliver spiteful whispers under his breath, reminding me nobody would believe my side. My frustration and anxiety grew by the day. Marcus stood by me the best he could, but Isaac had been his friend for so many years. Seeds of doubt had taken root in Marcus's mind, and no matter how much I insisted Isaac was tormenting me, a part of him wanted to believe Isaac was innocent. The confusion tested our relationship. I tried to be patient, but inside, resentment grew. I felt betrayed by Marcus's hesitation to see Isaac's malice. Yet, I also knew Isaac had perfected the art of manipulation, weaving half-truths into plausible stories. We were stuck in limbo, neither fully believing nor disbelieving each other. One fateful morning, Isaac exploded in a public setting, ironically providing exactly what I needed. We were at a brunch hosted by Marcus's cousin, Helena. Surrounded by family and close friends, Isaac decided to challenge me. He made a cutting remark about me being emotionally unstable, claiming I'd thrown a fit over a misplaced coffee mug. I calmly asked him to clarify. He launched into a tirade, calling me a liar, a manipulator, and accusing me of abusing Marcus. The room fell silent. People stared wide-eyed. Marcus demanded Isaac explain himself, but Isaac escalated, yelling about how I'd ruined everything. In that moment, I played my trump card. I took out my phone and played one of Isaac's recordings. The audio crackled through the room, capturing Isaac's voice spewing insults, laughing at how nobody would ever believe me. Several in the crowd exchanged shocked looks. Marcus's face paled as he recognized Isaac's words. Undeniably hateful, undeniably real. Isaac's rage turned to panic when he realized people were hearing his cruelty firsthand. Before he could respond, I showed the text messages. I read out his threats, exposing the twisted narrative he'd built. My heart pounded, but I felt an empowering certainty. Finally, Isaac tried to spin things again, this time stammering that I'd taken things out of context. He insisted those were jokes, that I'd edited the audio, that I was gaslighting everyone, but the evidence was undeniable. Helena quietly asked Isaac to leave, her eyes flickering with disgust. Marcus looked at me, his eyes welling with tears, then turned to Isaac, fury brimming. Isaac hurried out, threatening that he wasn't done, that he'd tell Marcus's parents I was toxic and get them involved. The room buzzed with stunned whispers. For the first time, people saw the real Isaac behind the mask. Outside, Marcus confronted him, demanding he stop these lies. According to Helena, who followed them out, Isaac threatened legal action and insisted he'd contact Marcus's parents immediately. Marcus told Isaac to never speak to him again. I stood in the doorway, my mind buzzing with relief and anger. I'd wanted Marcus to defend me, and now he was, but the damage was done. I was tired of being victimized. As Isaac stormed off, he shot me a glare so hateful it made my skin crawl. That was the moment I decided revenge was not just an option, it was necessary. Absolutely. Marcus apologized profusely, saying he never imagined Isaac could stoop to such cruelty. He vowed to cut ties completely. However, Isaac's threat to involve his parents loomed over us. Marcus's parents were conservative, proud, and wealthy. They had always been polite to me, but I sensed their wariness, especially about my working-class background. Isaac knew exactly where to strike. I suspected he'd feed them a toxic narrative, painting me as a gold-digging abuser. I refused to let that stand. I decided if Isaac wanted a war, I would fight back. My revenge would be slow, steady, and absolutely final. Indeed, through a mutual acquaintance, I discovered Isaac was deeply invested in a new business venture, an upscale bar he was co-founding. It was his dream project, one he bragged about incessantly. Rumor had it he'd poured nearly all his savings into it. If it failed, he'd be ruined financially. I collected every shred of evidence of Isaac's bullying, including the recordings, texts, and even testimonies from people who'd witnessed his aggression. I made discreet inquiries to potential investors, sharing concerns about Isaac's character. His prospective partners, serious entrepreneurs who valued reputation, were unsettled by the possibility of scandal. Doors began slamming shut, rapidly. Simultaneously, I discovered Isaac had been inflating his credentials to impress these investors. He'd claimed advanced business degrees, prestigious awards, and connections he simply did not have. So I compiled documentation proving his lies, university records, statements from organizations he'd never worked with, and contradictory social media posts. I sent them anonymously to a few influential figures in the local business scene. Soon, word spread that Isaac was not only volatile, but also dishonest. I didn't have to shout my revenge from the rooftops. Careful whispers did the damage. Isaac's business partners began to withdraw, leaving him increasingly desperate. Very desperate. Meanwhile, Isaac's threat to involve Marcus's parents escalated. He sent them a long email about my supposed cruelty, painting me as manipulative and harmful. Fortunately, by now, Marcus had fully grasped Isaac's duplicity. Marcus preemptively showed his parents the evidence of Isaac's bullying. They were stunned, especially by the recordings. Though they were reserved people, they apologized for ever doubting me. They told Isaac they wanted no part in his vendetta. Losing their support was a significant blow to Isaac. Once his strongest allies, they now kept him at arm's length, wary of his unpredictability. It was glorious vindication. Indeed, in a final act of desperation, Isaac confronted me outside a coffee shop one afternoon. His face was gaunt, his hair disheveled. He sneered, accusing me of destroying his life. I responded with calm resolve, telling him he'd brought this on himself. Nobody forced him to harass me, to spread lies, or to threaten my relationship. He spat insults, claiming he'd sue me for defamation. I informed him I had proof to counter any false claims he made. Realizing he had no leverage, his expression crumpled. For a moment, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Then he slunk away. From what I've heard since, Isaac's business venture collapsed entirely. Investors withdrew, prospective clients vanished, and rumors of his dishonesty circulated. He ended up selling his share at a loss. His reputation took a nosedive, leaving him isolated and financially strained. Meanwhile, Marcus and I moved forward with our wedding plans, free from Isaac's toxic interference. We decided on a small ceremony, surrounded by people who genuinely supported us. Watching Isaac's downfall didn't fill me with remorse. Rather, I felt vindicated, relieved that his bullying had been exposed. I gave him no forgiveness, only the consequence of his own cruelty. Occasionally, friends ask if I regret punishing him so thoroughly. Perhaps, they suggest, I should have shown mercy. But I remember the nights I cried myself to sleep, dreading every encounter with him. I remember how he twisted reality, how he nearly convinced Marcus I was a manipulative fraud. I recall the rage and humiliation when people whispered about my alleged cruelty. No, I don't regret it. Isaac earned his downfall. In the end, he exposed his own vile nature. I refused to forgive him, and that refusal granted me power. It reinforced my belief in my own worth, completely. In the aftermath, life settled into a calmer rhythm. I focused on my career, taking on new challenges without Isaac's sabotage. Marcus and I grew closer than ever, strengthened by the ordeal. We learned how vital trust and communication are, especially when outside forces attack a relationship. There were days I still felt the echo of Isaac's insults, but each time I reminded myself how I'd stood my ground. I refused to be a victim, and ultimately, I had emerged victorious. As wedding preparations continued, I felt a renewed sense of self-worth, no longer haunted by Isaac's shadow. and never more. When the wedding day arrived, there was no drama, no hint of Isaac. Friends and family celebrated joyously. Genevieve gave a moving toast, recalling how I'd battled adversity and come out stronger. Marcus's parents approached me, expressing both gratitude and regret. They regretted not seeing Isaac's true face sooner, and they were grateful I'd remained steadfast. Marcus himself held my hands, tears in his eyes, promising we'd always face challenges together. A wave of relief washed over me. Isaac's shadows felt distant now. I had won, not by stooping to his level, but by exposing his villainy for all to see. Afterward, life continued. Isaac remained a distant specter, a cautionary tale for anyone who tried to undermine my integrity. Sometimes I spotted him in social media posts, looking withdrawn and embittered. Rumor had it he left town, seeking to rebuild elsewhere. It didn't matter to me anymore. My life was filled with genuine love, supportive friends, and fresh opportunities. The echoes of Isaac's malice had finally faded, yet I never forgot the pain he inflicted or the depths of his cruelty. I harbored no illusions of forgiveness. I carried the lesson that one must stand tall against torment. Always tall. Sometimes, in the quiet of night, I recall his mocking laughter, the subtle digs, the relentless sabotage. I remember the fear I felt, worrying that his words would poison every connection I had. But then I recall the surge of triumph when I exposed him. I remember the look in his eyes as his fabrications unraveled. That memory warms me more than any fleeting pity ever could. Isaac never sought forgiveness, and I never intended to offer it. Betrayal of that magnitude deserved nothing less than the retribution it received. My conscience is clear and my heart is strong, unbreakable. As I finish recounting this story, I find myself oddly grateful for the ordeal. Isaac's cruelty forced me to confront my insecurities and learn the value of standing firm. It showed me the lengths to which some will go to maintain a facade of superiority. Most importantly, it cemented my self-respect. I refused to bend or endure endless humiliation. I chose retribution over futile forgiveness, and I stand by that choice. Life is too short to tolerate torment. If that means delivering a reckoning to those who harm us, so be it. I have no regrets, and I never will. And so, this chapter in my life closed, leaving behind lessons carved from anguish and vindication. Isaac retreated into the shadows, his name scarcely mentioned among our friends. In time, people moved on, focusing on their own joys and struggles. But the memory of Isaac's torment lingered in my mind, a sharp reminder of how far malice can go if left unchecked. I found strength in refusing to excuse his cruelty. Some might call me ruthless for denying him grace, but I see it differently. Protecting myself was paramount, and ensuring Isaac tasted his own poison felt wonderfully just. Indeed, I stand by that choice. I will never forgive the year of silent torture, the whispered rumors, the relentless humiliation. Forgiveness might be a gift for those who show remorse, but Isaac never did. He weaponized my kindness, ridiculed my background, and threatened to destroy my future. I met his cruelty with evidence, exposed him, and savored the justice. In the end, my story isn't about redemption or second chances. It's about a woman who refused to yield to a bully. I emerged stronger, unbroken. Isaac lost everything he tried to protect, and I regret nothing. My revenge was complete, forever.